Hello, my name is John and today on Monostory we're going to be talking about Kagurabachi and its anime confirmation. So let's get into it and find out what it's all about. And to think, this all began because of $50 and a lighter. Finally, after many years of speculation and potential leaks, the anime for Kagurabachi has been confirmed. Its set release date is confirmed to be April 2027. The studio producing this anime is known as Cypic, and before they were known as Cygames, being a subsidiary of Cyber Agent. However, recently, due to a lot of consolidation of a variety of companies, they rebranded and are now known as Cypic. They have produced previous works such as Uma Musume, which is a very popular horse racing show. However, the story does not use horses, but rather young women who are portraying these horses in races. And if they take the animation they use for Uma Musume for Kagurabachi, then I think this anime will be generational for the anime manga community. The first thing we need to look at is how will the anime adaptate the manga chapters, and we have to look at where it will start and finish for part 1. So our start would be obviously with Kunishige and Chihiro's introduction, doing blacksmithing, to the end where we have the release of Magatsumi and its absolute destructive power with Akamura Soga. And so in my opinion, I think it will take about 2 years for part 1 to be fully adapted into an anime. We'll obviously start with Chihiro and Kunishige showing their interactions and support for each other, and then we will get the basic start of the story where we get Kunishige getting deleted and going from there onto our absolute blockbuster fights. And then we'll go on to, I think, about the end of the Swordbearer assassination arc where we see Uraha versing Samura, and we get that absolute duel followed by Samura deleting Uraha. If that is the case, then we're going to get the Sojo arc, the Rakuzai Ichi arc, and we're going to get at least the start, if not all of the Swordbearer assassination arc. And then for season 2, we're going to go to Kyoto where we meet up with Iori, and then we're going to have the attack on the Kabunabi, followed by the release and destruction from Akamura Soga, where we will finish off with Chihiro blacksmithing the new N10 and Cloud Gouger. And so that means that by at least 2029, 2030, we will see the first instance of the now being made Seitei War arc. So if you want to see any of the Mikaboshi clan, unfortunately we're going to have to wait at least 2 to 3 years for that to become a reality. In the case we do get at least 3 years of production with the anime, and we do get up to the Seitei War, that means we would have had 3 years of manga production, and each year would have had 52 chapters. So if we get to that point, we would have at least had from now to at least 2029, 2030, we're looking at about 150 to 200 chapters. So if we're on 100 chapters roughly now, we're going to be on about 250 to 300 chapters, which means we'd be in the range of Demon Slayer, because it had about 205 chapters. If it goes on for longer, if we count Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z chapter list, then we'd have about 519 chapters for that. So there might be a little bit more wiggle room for Kagurabachi to reach that level. And if it really wants to expand on its universe, which I hope it doesn't, I hope it keeps it to about that 200, 300 chapter mark and keeps its containment without being some slow burn story, then it would reach Naruto levels of about 700 chapters. So if you are a Kagurabachi fan, which I hope you are, if you are watching this video, or you are going to become one if you are looking to enter through the anime, then there will be a lot of content coming out for Kagurabachi in at least the next 3 to 6 years. Because even after the manga finishes, with at least that manga amount, there's still the anime being produced, which will take that same amount of time. In regards to the animation itself, the director has been confirmed to be Tetsuya Takeuchi. And besides the fact that his name may seem very unfamiliar, you are probably more aware of his work than most people would think in the first place. And that is because he was the key animator of the Gaara vs. Rock Lee fight. If you have not seen that fight, I highly recommend you go and watch it. You may not even know what Naruto is about, and that is fine, but you do not need to understand what it's about to understand this fight. It is a very beautiful fight. Basically, the scene that is taking place is during the Chunin exam arc, where we have Gaara, this person from the Hidden Sand Village, is coming into the Hidden Leaf Village to complete this exam in order to become a Chunin, as most ninja start off as a Genin, which is the lowest level, and they are trying to become a Chunin. He is fighting against a character known as Rock Lee, who is consistently training to try and get better and better, and they clash. And the issue with this fight is that Rock Lee is the underdog because he is only trained in Taijutsu, and in Naruto there are 3 different types of jutsu: Genjutsu, Ninjutsu, Taijutsu, and in this case Rock Lee has only trained in Taijutsu, which means that against Gaara, who is specifically using a ninjutsu sort of fighting style, it is weak, and his sand barrier and sand ability to track people's movements makes him very hard to hit. This is because Rock Lee, as a Taijutsu user, is only using his body, while Gaara's sand barrier is hard to penetrate without ninjutsu, which are ninja abilities created through chakra. So what we see during that fight is a basic underdog story where we already assume that Rock Lee is going to lose exponentially. But what we actually see is the continual development of Rock Lee during the fight, where he takes off his weights, he opens the gates, and from that moment we start to see this character who we have assumed as being this untouchable, unfathomable monster known as Gaara is actually weak, actually has to use his abilities, and it is insane. And so it is that fight that we hopefully will get through different animations in Kagurabachi. Some of the things I'm looking forward to in Kagurabachi, in this case, if it does get animated like that fight or many of the other fights that this director has directed, would be things such as Sojo versus Chihiro, Kyora versus Chihiro, Hirohiko versus Chihiro, Uruha versus Samura. And this is all going to be before finishing Season 1 of the anime. However, it isn't the action that I'm really looking forward to, it's actually some of the more sadder points of the story. So we are already aware of Kunishige getting deleted, that's not unknown to anybody, but what the interesting part of the story will be is where they look at probably the first real emotional deletion in the story. And this is a character known as Norisaku Madoka, and we probably have forgotten who he is, but he was in chapter 3 of the Kagurabachi manga, where he is fighting against Chihiro to try and get Sha. Sha has that healing ability that Sojo wants in order to be able to use the Datenseki. And so we get this first fight, which is our real big fight after that big fight in the building where we see Chihiro just mass delete all those people. And we find out that after this fight, Norisaku wants to actually quit being a sorcerer for Sojo, and he wants to go live his own life. And so he makes a call to his mum, and he's speaking with his sister for the first time, and he gets in the car and we think it's over, he's leaving. And then bam, Sojo comes out of nowhere and just uses Kurigumo and just rips him apart, just destroys him. And his sister, and why didn't he get a call from his mother? His mother too. And it'll be that point that we find out how they deal with the emotion, because it is not only the fights that make Kagurabachi so good, but it's in those moments where the characters lose everything and they're in that last point of solace before they are deleted. So things like, we could talk about Kyora, how he uses Magatsumi, and in that last moment where Magatsumi has taken all of his life, that he realizes his mistake, that moment should be animated with the complete concise abilities of the music and the animation. Things such as Samura versus Uruha and that end point, and where we see Uruha on the ground, that moment needs to be animated correctly because it needs to give the understanding that this is an important moment. So even though we know that Kagurabachi will do its fights beautifully, how will it take its emotion and show that to the audience? That's what I am wanting to find out.
That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
I am very excited for the Kagurabachi anime. I think Hokuzono is still cooking. I think that we have a lot coming up, and if this works out, this anime, then Kagurabachi will be cemented in history as one of those anime manga up there with things such as Death Note, Naruto, One Piece, Bleach, Attack on Titan, even potentially Neon Genesis Evangelion, if it does its cards right in the anime. It makes its fights excellent, its emotion is good, the music sounds amazing, the animation is fluid. Everything needs to go for this anime, and it will take off. Already the manga is selling very well, and if the anime puts it into overdrive, we're going to be looking at a series that will be changing a generation, like Dragon Ball or the Big Three changed their generations when they were being produced at that time. However, this does mean that there will now be not only manga readers in the community. So I say to all of my viewers, subs, whoever you are who have been watching Kagurabachi content on this channel, before the shippers, power scalers and tourists come in to destroy this community, I just want to say one more thing. I remember all the conversations we had about Kagurabachi and the theories we came up with, but just remember one thing: we are the OG. So I salute all you ladies and gentlemen out there who've been watching Kagurabachi content. Hopefully in the future we'll be able to keep up this beautiful story and not let it be taken away by other people who think that they can tell us what we can and cannot watch. Until that day comes, I'm going to be out there on the front lines reporting everything about Kagurabachi as much as I can. I want to thank you all for watching today's video. If you have any thoughts, ideas, anything you want to talk about the anime, manga, please write it down in the comment section below. My name is John from Mono Story. If you haven't already liked, subscribed, and pressed the bell button, please do so. If you want to watch another video, clip up above. If not, until next time, I will see you on another Mono Story. Good luck out there, ladies and gentlemen. We've got a fight on our hands.